And if you start saying yes, or you start inviting people to go do things, before you know it, you're leading this great, fun, interesting life to you on your terms, the things that you want to do with the people that you want to do them with. And each of us, we're free to do this. We're empowered to do this. And it doesn't cost you anything. Do the things that are actually part of the social element of who we are as humans.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast. I'm excited about this one. This one happened, it was a real quick turnaround on this one. I'm sitting down right now with Jason McCarthy. He's the founder of GoRuck. We've got a GoRuck, or we have a rucking event. We don't have the rights to put GoRuck on it, but we have our first one, Jason, coming up here very soon, which is one of the reasons I'm so excited to get you on here. But first off, thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
Yeah, man, I got a nice note from Nick Lavery about you, and
dude, that
here we are.
That guy. You know, in this world of connecting with people all over the country, and you meet people, and you know, a lot of these things are on the surface level, but that guy, man, he's just a constant, amazing person. Like anytime I've hit him up, he's always been there for us, and I'm assuming you might have heard him speak more than once or twice, but he's unreal. We brought him in for a speaking event, actually our first speaking event last October. And I say this, I don't care if you served ice cream at Dairy Queen or you're another Green Beret, like you walked out of that, like that guy he got you fired up, man, ready to take on the world.
Very fair. Yeah.
So I'm going to be honest with you. I knew some about you. I've watched, I've put on, I forget what channel it was, but it was going through some of the GoRucking events. But the more I dug into the research for this interview, the more excited I got about it. I want to start off with your thoughts in general, the importance of purpose, doing things hard, and what that does to an individual and a group of people.
Yeah, let's start with purpose first. I mean, look, what I don't want to do is show up here and say, hey, every morning I wake up and eat nails and I'm so hard and me. That's just a very, like, whatever, man. It ain't me, babe. You know, purpose is kind of something that's not really for sale. So it's easy to overlook throughout the course of your day. You're not getting ads for purpose. You're not getting anything that's really saying, hey, this is probably the most important thing that you can find in life, because there's no easy button on it. And so for me, I mean, in my life, you know, did not have purpose when I was going through, and I don't think you're supposed to, and I think that's okay. As I was going through high school and college, like, what am I supposed to do with my life? And I felt like I was in a pressure cooker of expectations, and I was ill-equipped to deal with it. I mean, how do you find that when the world is kind of pointing you this direction, or you should do this, or you should do that, or you should have this kind of job and earn this kind of money, and it'll lead to this and this country club and that country club and this status and that kind of credit card and this frequent flyer mileage status so you can get to the front of the whatever. I'm like, none of that stuff matters to me, right? The purpose that I found after the towers fell was this strong, visceral desire to serve America, and really it was 100% fueled by a desire for revenge. Nick Lavery and I very much have that in common.
Yeah.
And I just like, this is going to happen. It was still hard to kind of sign up for the Army in a time of war. I mean, I was 22 when the towers fell, and it took me another 2 years to eventually actually giddy up and sign up, because I was trying to go to other places that were less dangerous, but I needed to be on the front lines. And so, you know, so that was a really meaningful chapter in my life. It unlocked this goal of kind of service to the person to my left and the person to my right. And that overtook the desire for revenge. It's like love is the most powerful thing that you can feel on earth, not revenge. Revenge is a fleeting emotion, not really to be trusted, although it can inspire great things, but it's not really to be trusted. You can't endure off of revenge, right? But love you can, and service is tied to love. And so that became a purpose for me. And, you know, when I was getting out of the Army, I lost that, and I definitely felt like I lost that. And so it was kind of like you can figure things out, but you can't figure things out forever. You have to kind of keep reinventing yourself a little bit. And so, GoRuck and the mission that we have became that purpose again. There was a desire to sort of give back from what I had learned and what I felt I could sort of pay forward to America and our way of life based upon, what I had been given from so many people that I served with.
It was interesting. I was listening to you talk about like traveling. I believe I don't know if you're traveling Europe or South America or something on this kind of quest, right? After high school or excuse me, to kind of, explore the world, find yourself, figure out like who you are as a person. And on the surface, that seems like that would be a great idea. But you find that it's in, at least it's been my experience of when you do this thing as an individual, yes, there's a benefit to that, but there's like accepting that you're part of something else, right? Even you've got these individual skills, but when you're part of a team, and I think we find that not just in the military, right? Like I don't care. I said on here before, like pagans have a process for them to become part of a group. The special forces, all the militaries do. There's something about giving in to an organization, whatever kind of service that is, like that. There's an ROI on that is very hard to replicate by yourself. I would dare to say almost impossible.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about what matters most in your life, I mean, how does staring in the mirror and telling yourself how great you are, how does that stack up? That's not really that great of like, oh man, I had the best time in front of the mirror this morning. I told myself how great I was. Like that's just not how it works. It's about what you're able to kind of what mission you're serving and the people that you're working with or working for. And if you're doing it right, you're kind of serving the same mission, and you do it together. And it's a very rewarding way to lead a life.
A lot of people are going to know your backstory that listen to this podcast, but I just want to I want to give like the elevator pitch of it because if they don't, they're missing out on something. I'm going to give it. You just stop me where I messed this up. All right. So Jason graduates high school. You end up going to college. After college, you end up working in a call center.
You're nailing it.
Okay. All right. So far, we're good. 9/11 happens. You mentioned your deep, deep desire for revenge, which turns into the process of enlisting in the Army, which was not a quick turnaround. I'm going to condense a whole lot. You go in the Army, you go through the Q course, you become an Army Green Beret. When I was listening to some of your interviews, and you kind of alluded to it in the beginning of this, because people will understand identity. They'll understand being part of something. What I don't think a lot of people talk enough about, I mean, it's out there, but we don't discuss it enough, is when that's gone, right? So I don't know about you. I wasn't a Green Beret, but I will say when I was in the military, I thought I had it figured out because I had this network, this system around me. And then I got out, and there was a quick lesson, and you do not have it figured out. And a matter of fact, the fucking wheels came off fairly quick. So what was your experience like of coming off something where you are so close to the men around you that they're this integral part of your life? And, not only are you separated, but now this machine that you've been part of continues to go on.
Yeah, I mean, the weird part is that you learn how to take nothing for granted, right? I mean, you go through all of this stuff and all this preparation, all this training that's based upon worst case scenario planning and what if this and what if that. You have every contingency sort of talked through, right? And in the process of building that out, you become a very adaptable individual and become a very adaptable team. And yet, it's like what's water becomes how you're living your life in terms of the camaraderie and the social element there. And when that's ripped away from you, you just didn't even realize that that's what you were swimming in water, right? You didn't even realize what it was. It's the David Foster Wallace
Yeah, yeah,
speech,
yeah,
which is fantastic.
yeah,
Go check it out. But it's, you just cannot. I mean, and it sounds. I would hear these people like, oh, you just miss out on the things that are the most important, that are the closest. You take them for granted. It's like, no, I don't.
yeah.
Right?
Whatever. Yeah,
And so then, yeah, it's just, hey, I wake up, I put a uniform on, I eat mission, day in and day out. I train to serve the mission. I train to serve the guy to my left and the guy to my right. They need me, I need them. That's a symbiotic relationship that provides deep seated value inside of our souls. And then, it's kind of like driving off base for the last time through Kansas with, just crying my eyes out,
yeah,
because like it hits you. Like, wait, what just happened? You know, you know that it can all be taken away, but it's an intellectual thing. It's intellectual to think, oh, well, I'm ready for this or whatever. But some things you just can't be ready for.
yeah. I thought I was, and I remember very distinctly, and I'm embarrassed by this. I was in a bar, and I'd probably been out for like 6 months, and I'm a little bit older, so I'd gotten out right before 9/11, right? And I'm sitting in a bar, and there's guys in their uniform. They were drinking, and I was starting shit with them, and I don't think I realized. Probably maybe I thought about like the next day. I was jealous because at this point, I believe the towers had fallen. These guys were still serving. I wasn't. I was literally putting in security doors in the ghettos of Sacramento,
Mm.
and just feeling like really, really jealous. Right, like these guys are still in it, and I think there's a lot of people, man. It's a humbling thought to realize that things go on. Right? You may think in your unit or your job or whatever it is that you play such a big role, and then you find out fairly quick like somebody else will fill it. It just keeps going, and that can be a really lonely place to be, right?
You love it more than it can ever love you back.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Before we get into the transition into like how GoRuck came to be, everyone I talk to seems to kind of go through a funk when they get out. What if you were going to put a time frame on Jason McCarthy's just got out of the military funk? What would you put on that?
I mean, I got out at the end of '08, and I enrolled in school, grad school, in the fall of '09. So
Oh, okay,
it was about a year.
okay, all right,
I mean, having something to do, even if it's wake up and go to school. I mean, some structure to where I'm like, okay, this feels like it's like I'm moving forward in life.
yeah,
It feels like that. Whether you are or not is kind of irrelevant. It feels like that, right? And
sure,
so that's the most important thing. And that's kind of what got me, okay, that was the unlock. I can still move forward with my life, even though I'm not what I once was. And so from that point on, it was incrementally better, but it was about a year.
yeah. We go back to purpose, right? You have a reason to do the things that you're doing. You have a goal you're shooting towards. What interests me about Go Rock, and I've said this to a couple different people. COH, consequence of habit, was started because, well, one, because I used to drink too much, right? So I'm drinking an Athletic Brewing non-alcoholic beer here. I get sober and I see other veterans and first responders around me that learned a ton of great habits in their service, but at the same time, they brought over some habits that weren't serving them long term, right? Usually around coping. It may not have started as coping, but at some point, not for everybody, but it may transition. With the go with the GoRuck, what was I mean, was there a time when you were rucking? Because I've heard you talk about your love for it and how you were kind of naturally good at it. Did you think at all during that time, hey man, this is something I'm going to bring to the civilian world?
I, I just wasn't that conscious about it for years and years and years. I
Yeah.
just was kind of doing what I knew. And, I remember I was, I would stay with my grandparents in the summer times, and they were hugely kind of inspirational in my life. And I decided I would read books, and I would, try to write short stories and
Yeah.
do all that stuff. And I remember trying to write this short story about this kind of skiing adventure in Austria or something. And my grandmother's like, you need to write what you know. And I'm like, well, that's fair. I've never been
Yeah.
to Austria. I have been skiing, but I've never been to Austria and all of
Right.
this stuff. And like, you need to write what you know. And like that made sense to me. It's obviously a lesson, shoot, 30 something years later, I'm still kind of like, okay, do what you know, but you can learn new things, but like apply what you know. And that's just what I knew. And I'd kind of incrementally gotten into this thing of GoRuck on the manufacturing side and then on the events side, and the events were based on rucking because rucking is the foundation of special forces training. And I've been put through the grinder on that. And I came out the other side and I mean, what's rucking good for? I don't know. Like go outside and carry weight, hike a mountain, ruck the dog. What, like it's good for staying active and feeling productive, but that's not. I can give you the elevator pitch on all the health benefits now and
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
of that stuff. That's not where I was back then. This was just a way to go out and do pipe hitter shit with my friends, and I missed that. And to meet new people and to show up on a random street corner at 1 a.m. and meet the kind of person that wanted to show up on a street corner at 1 a.m. And that was just pure adrenaline pumped into my veins at that time in my life where all of that was gone. I wasn't, fast roping out of helicopters and jumping out of airplanes and kicking down doors anymore. It was, the threat of a mundane life. And I just was not enthralled by that. So, hey, meet me at 1 a.m. Let's go do bottom samples in a lake in the Central Park in New York. Like, yeah, let's do that. Right. And it's very hardcore. And, and there's still a part of GoRuck and me that's very hardcore. And I'm cool with that. That's who I am. I'm also the guy that, like wake up and walk the dog in the morning. I bike the kid to school. It's like there's a normal routine as well. It's just on the fringes, I try to stay active. I try to stay healthy. I gotta find ways to do all of that to kind of stay sane.
Yeah. This is me personally. I don't connect with the person who wakes up and eats nails and starts their day with an amazing journal and then does the Murph twice and then whatever
And then tells you about it.
and then post about it. That's right. So I don't connect with that. I mean, part of me is impressed by that, but something I think that comes with age. After a while, you're like, wow, you have a family, and then you look at like I don't know your own kids and go, holy shit, that's way more important than the time on my Murph. So I appreciate you saying that you're holding two things. You still got that old SF in you, but at the same time, you're kind of a normal human. I always think about something like GoRuck. There's a part of our country, whether it's a Michael Easterbrook, who's been a huge supporter of you guys and just rucking in general. I know you were attached at one point to the Tough Mudder, but there's this like vein in our country and probably the world where people are looking for adversity, like controllable adversity, something that they can subject themselves, because we live in such a world where we're sitting in air conditioning, we're eating everything, and we see the results, not just physical, but on the mental health side. But at the same time, you said you launched this and you thought it was going to take off, and that wasn't the case at first, correct?
Yeah, the world didn't care. They're not looking for solutions to the problems that you identify. They're looking for something to get through their life,
An
add
app,
value to that.
an app.
Yeah.
So because to me, it's the marketing side that really interests me. Like we know, so I start Consequence of Habit, and people go, "Look, why are you even talking about that?" Like we all know we have to have good habits, right? But at the same time, as a country with the highest rates of anxiety, depression, and substance misuse, suicide, preventable diseases, how do you package this in a way that people are going to connect to it? And I'm not talking about the other military people that are going to seem like, hell yeah, I'm doing it. But maybe the person that is, I might be willing to do that.
I mean, I think personally, I just get fatigued to everybody saying like, hey, we've got to do hard things or else because we're
Yep.
so soft. And I just, I mean, I'm around that a lot. I hear that a lot, and people
Uh-huh.
expect me to just sort of nod my head and say, uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. The
Hmm.
problem is like, I don't think talking at people works very well.
I agree.
And so I think that instead of saying, hey, go climb the mountain, or hey, do a million burpees, I've met plenty of people who are really good at doing resume building hard things, like, hey, this and this and this and this. But if you ask them what's most important in their life, it's probably, the people that they love. You know, and then you say, okay, well, when's the last time you had a dinner and you just talked to the person that you love the most about how you're feeling about your life? Like,
Yep.
that's fucking hard sometimes,
That's harder.
and,
That's
and so you
harder.
say, or go do another 100 miler. Got it, right? Like, who's committed to doing hard things? And I say this from a standpoint of, these are the things I have to remind myself of as well, because I'm just fine doing the next, hey, I'm gonna go do a 50 miler or whatever, right? I've got to kind of self maintain the machine to, I gotta stay active, or else I just go crazy.
Right.
I think the missing link in all of this, the God's work, if you will, is to get people active. And I don't just mean physically active, I mean socially active. I mean, go out to dinner with a friend and talk about your lives. I think that fitness is a fantastic way. It's the world's greatest icebreaker. Find something that people want to do, and it's active and it's healthy. And before you know it, everybody's, kind of more receptive to talking and listening. And you end up just talking to the people that are around you. If you do it in the real world, if you're, staring at Mr. Spandex telling you to pedal faster on your Peloton, I don't think that's a great, like, you're taking care of the physical side, but not the social side of health. And if there's more push to bring people together in the real world, and then you meet those people and now go do more stuff with them. And that's how you sort of get your tribe. That's how you get your people. And if you start saying yes, or you start inviting people to go do things, before you know it, you're leading this great, fun, interesting life to you on your terms, the things that you want to do with the people that you want to do them with. And each of us, we're free to do this. We're empowered to do this. And it doesn't cost you anything. You do the thing, you show up for the thing, you invite the people to go do the thing. It doesn't, I mean, going to dinner might cost you something, but it doesn't cost you more to go with somebody else than it does to go just to eat in general. So, you know, do the things and that are actually part of the social element of who we are as humans. And that's the big unlock. It's also like not for sale. I mean, you have to actually do these things that tie us back to the hunter-gatherer days of how humans operated, or, pre-industrial revolution, which is much, you used to need other people to do things. You used to desire to go out and be with other people just as a matter of default. And you still see this in a lot of parts of the world where there's not so much wealth and so much privacy because they can't afford it. So it's more communal. And I'm very attracted to that way of life.
One of the things we talk about is building connection through a shared purpose, right? So doing something together, like you said, physical activity is an icebreaker on something like that. Has your thoughts on this, your viewpoints, how much has that evolved from the time from the time GoRuck started?
Thoughts on like how to
Through
organize it?
no, not to organize, but even the social aspect of what you're doing, the
Yeah,
activity.
so okay, I know what you mean. So we started out, and that's kind of what, like, you never would have heard of GoRuck except that we were able to bring people together.
Right.
Because then those people told their friends and people about GoRuck, and some showed up and did events, and others bought gear. And you know, we exist to sort of inspire, challenge, and equip people to ruck up with friends and embrace the suck, right? And so if people weren't showing up, we would not have existed. And yet here we are, and eventually we've gotten much better at putting stuff in boxes to ship to people, and that's fine, right? We have a mission around rucking and getting people good. Um, like the world doesn't need another backpack company. Like it's not like, oh, I started a backpack company. Congratulations, the world does not need that, right? And so for us, it was important to do more than just that. And so, the way that we still have, I mean, we've put on 10,000 rucking events since 2010, just to put some scale to it. There's 500, active GoRuck clubs around the country and the world. And they're varying sizes. They're independently run by people who are there. Sometimes they meet once a week, sometimes once a month. It's up to them, right?
Yeah.
Our job is to kind of nudge a little bit more and say, hey, go out and be active, right? We're doing this. Join us wherever you are. And that stuff is like intimately tied with our purpose. I mean, my wife, Emily, and I, we started this together. And that's like one of the things that for us is always top of always top of mind is bringing people together and not just putting stuff in boxes. And you have to do the basics really well, right? Like pick, pack, and ship, and build great stuff, and lifetime guarantee, and make sure it works really, really well. And that stuff's behind the scenes, and and um, and it's cool. I do enjoy the problem solving associated with that, but my heart is with bringing people together, and that's why when it gets really hard, it's still possible to keep going and to keep fighting the good fight.
That was actually my next question. Is there a time since you started this where things weren't going? I mean, I'm sure there were, but when things were going really bad, and there was something about that aspect of your mission that really pulled you through and got you to say, all right, listen.
It's always been the people. I mean,
Yeah,
look, the operational side is always a problem. Like, how do you build stuff better? How do you ship it faster? How do you market better? How do how much are you spending on this, on this, on this? Tie it all together. This person comes into your life, this person leaves your life. There's just a lot of moving parts to all of it. And so there's been years where the operational side has been a big problem, or finance side tied to the operations side, tied to the marketing side, and those are the years where it's like, man, it's just sucking the life out of me.
sure.
And how do you get through that to get kind of at a higher level back to the things that sort of made us us, and that will continue to propel us forward. So yeah, it always comes back to sort of the community building and like why we exist, to get people outside and active together.
Yeah, it's what we're missing, right? This feeling like I think it was in Japan. I think Michael Easter actually talks about his book the just being outside for 20 minutes, like the effects that it has on us, as I think it was like equivalent to the same as some antidepressants. Uh, when it comes to just a back, I love the fact that you're like, yeah, there's a million different backpacks. Now, this is insanely built. If you want to know if there's a million different backpacks, look up GoRuck and you'll be inundated by backpack companies. Like, yeah, I got murdered with them, but I was trying to find an event that everybody could do, and you could change the different weights, right? Because we were going to do a running event. We have some hardcore runners. We have 30 ambassadors across the country, right? We have guys that are doing the Cocodona 250, and other people are doing the Turkey Trot, right? And how do you find a medium in that? And rucking is what we decided to do. And to put us over, I don't know if you know the name Sarah Mae Hollingsworth.
Yeah,
She's she's one of our ambassadors, and she's been praising, and she, like you said, she started her own independent group, and she's been talking about it. So here we are. Next month we're going to be holding our first one. We're pretty stoked about it.
that's awesome.
Yeah, no, we're very excited. Um, when Nick hit you up about doing this, you mentioned, hey, we got to do this by Thursday. I'm leaving for Normandy. Are you at liberty to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. We're heading over there. We're putting on a ton of different events. It's the 80th anniversary of Operation Overlord, which is D-Day. Opening scene of Saving Private Ryan. If people are familiar, that was on Omaha Beach. It's the largest amphibious operation in history, and there's almost 10,000 Americans buried at the American Cemetery there. It was June 6, 1944. And the American Cemetery was born because they needed a gravesite.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many brave men died that day, and that would continue in the sort of liberation of Europe. And so people kind of know that story. It's the human side that you can read it in the books, and at the end of Saving Private Ryan, when the guy who plays Matt Damon is older, people sacrifice their lives for him, and he's asking his wife, like, "Have I been a good man?" And those that hits home even more the older that I get. And when you're there, it's like, I mean, to me, Normandy is the most American place on planet Earth. And
Really?
this is coming from a red-blooded patriot, America-loving dude, right? And it's in Normandy, France. It's just all, like selfless service and
Sacrifice. Yeah.
represented by the person to the left and the person to your right. And we were fighting for something that we believed in, and it was just and it was right, and we won. It's pretty
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
But it doesn't cost you nothing. It costs an extraordinary amount, and I think that imbues me with a sense of gratitude. And it's like, man, you just continue to owe more, right? So it fills up the heart that way. So we like to go back and we do a bunch of different events. We have a really hard event called GoRuck Selection, which is 48 hours. It's based on some of our selections. That's the not fun event of the group. And then there's a 50 miler, a 26.2. Nick Lavery's doing the 26.2. Him and his 4-inch femur, are doing the
Right.
26.2. God bless that American stud right there. Uh, and then there's other events, and there's kind of GoRuck challenges that are on the beaches of Omaha as well. And we have a big kind of chateau in because there's a lot of us going,
Sure.
and so that'll be sort of the ground zero of the whole operation. Be in and out of there, and people be celebrating life and what we owe and how much we respect the sacred place that is Normandy there together. And it's as with all of life, it's best when shared. And so we're really excited to have a bunch of people joining us.
Awesome. Awesome. I don't want to hold you up too much. I got just a couple more questions. Have you thought about, the fact that you're at a call center, 9/11 happens, and the way it altered your life? I mean, there's times in life where I'm on this kick right now because I'm reading Alchemist for about the fourth time right
What
now,
a
right?
great book.
It's like Pulp Fiction. Like every time I read it, there's just you see
Yeah.
more, you learn more, and it talks about destiny, right? It talks about following your path. Have you thought about Jason McCarthy without 9/11? Like what that where that next that what the next sense of purpose or what that would look like?
I mean, if you
Not worth
play
it.
all these kind of what if games, you can just go crazy.
All
I
right, we'll
mean,
skip that
what
one
it,
then.
but I guess the important thing though is that you know the thing to wrestle with though that I do wrestle with is that 9/11, which cost us so much on the day of and in the decades that would follow. I mean, guys that I would eventually love aren't here anymore, and like it was such a net positive for me in my life. And so that's just a weight to kind of carry around and to pay forward over time. And so that's kind of like what I got. Like if I'm looking to make sense of how this all works in this lifetime, it ain't gonna happen. I mean, maybe in the next lifetime, I don't know, but I can't. I'll go crazy if I think too much about that.
Yeah, I get it. It's almost like talking about like COVID, where like for me personally, it was a lot of positive things happen, right? And then you talk to someone, you don't want to almost you almost don't want to say that out loud to certain people, right? Because they've lost loved ones, and yeah,
It was a return to a simpler life for us, and COVID proved to be, there was a lot of good that came out of it. There's a lot of suffering, which is very hard to think about or to like. You can't say things that are so insensitive.
sure.
All I can say is that a lot of good came out of it for us in a return to simplicity and to kind of remove some of the complexities of life. And so, we did our best to make the best of it.
Yeah. Jason, I appreciate you taking the time. I just asked you don't jump off. I know you probably know Riverside or these systems better than I do, but this is going to have to upload here. I appreciate you taking the time. Like I said, this was a last minute. You're running a company, you're leaving the country. So